Commander Zexithara of the Valdorian fleet adjusted the neural interface with trembling appendages. Her 3 eyes dulled by the weight of memories she wished she could purge. The interview chamber aboard the neutral station felt suffocating despite its generous dimensions, designed to accommodate a dozen different species. She had requested this meeting herself, driven by a need that transcended her military conditioning, the need to warn others. "Begin recording," she rasped to the holographic journalist, her translator struggling to convey the depth of exhaustion in her voice. "Commander, you were present at the Battle of Kepler 442b, the first major engagement between the Valdorian Confederation and humanity. Your fleet outnumbered theirs 3-1. What happened?" Zexthara's mandibles clicked involuntarily, a nervous habit she'd developed since that cursed day. "We thought we understood warfare. For 2,000 cycles, the Confederation had expanded across 17 sectors, absorbing or eliminating lesser species with calculated precision. Our doctrine was flawless, overwhelming force, superior technology, swift victory." She paused, her middle eye focusing on something beyond the interviewer. "Humans. They don't fight like anything in our databases." The journalist leaned forward. "Explain." "Our intelligence suggested they were a young species, barely 3 centuries since their first interstellar flight. Their ships were crude, built from refined metals and primitive fusion cores. We expected surrender after the first orbital bombardment." Zexthara's voice cracked. "They didn't even respond to our surrender demands." Instead of the tactical overview expected, she dove into visceral detail. "The human vessels moved wrong. Our predictive algorithms couldn't track them because they flew like no rational being would, directly into crossfire, using their own dying ships as shields, ramming dreadnoughts with fighters barely larger than escape pods." The memories flooded back unbidden. Admiral Vexon laughed when the first human ship exploded against our flagship's shields. Primitive suicide tactics, he called it. But they weren't trying to die, they were buying time. Time for what? For reinforcements that shouldn't have existed. Our deep-range scanners showed empty space, but somehow human vessels materialized from quantum shadow zones we didn't even know were possible. Ships that had been running silent for weeks, their crews breathing recycled air and eating protein paste, waiting. Zexithara's appendages curled tight. That was when we realized. Every human ship was a weapon, every human aboard it was willing to die, and every death made the survivors fight harder. She described the boarding actions with clinical detachment masking profound trauma. When they breached our hull, we expected to face them with superior close-quarters weaponry. Our exosuits could withstand plasma bursts that would vaporize their fragile bodies. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But humans don't just fight with weapons." The interviewer waited, sensing the approach of something crucial. "They used everything. Hull fragments became projectiles. Atmosphere processors became bombs. They sealed themselves in compartments with our soldiers and vented the air, suffocating together just to eliminate a handful of our troops." Zexithara's middle eye began to weep the purple tears of her species. "I watched a human female injured, her weapon destroyed, tackle one of our assault troopers into a fusion conduit. The explosion killed them both and crippled an entire deck." "But surely your superior numbers..." "Numbers." Zexthara's laugh was bitter. "Each human we killed seemed to spawn 3 more determined fighters. They transmitted battle data in real time, learned from every death, adapted faster than our tactical computers could process. When we destroyed their command ships, enlisted personnel took command. When we killed their officers, civilians stepped forward." The questioning continued, but Zexithara's focus had shifted to the greater horror. The worst part wasn't their tactics or their adaptability. It was their unity. Valdorians fight for glory, for the Confederation, for advancement. But humans, she struggled with the concept. They fought for each other. I monitored their communications. A dying human's last words weren't pleas for help or cries of pain. They were tactical information to help their comrades, or messages of love to families they'd never see again. What turned the battle? There was no singular moment. The tide turned when we realized that destroying human ships didn't eliminate human threats. It created them. Debris fields became minefields. Damaged vessels became booby traps. Even their dead became weapons as rescue operations turned into ambushes. Zexthara's voice grew hollow. "Admiral Vexon ordered a strategic withdrawal after we'd lost 60% of our fleet. But humans don't accept withdrawal. They pursued us across 2 systems, hitting our supply lines, targeting our repair stations, turning our own strategic depth against us. And now the Confederation debates whether humans are even the same species we first encountered. Some suggest they're a hive mind, others that they're genetically engineered weapons. But I was there. She leaned forward, her 3 eyes focusing with sudden intensity. They're not monsters or machines. They're just more than we ever imagined a species could be. The interview was winding down, but Zexithara had one final revelation. The human commander who accepted our surrender, Captain Sarah Chen, she offered medical aid to our wounded, food to our hungry, safe passage home to our survivors. The alien's voice carried bewilderment that hadn't faded in the month since. She fought us with absolute ruthlessness, then showed us more mercy than we'd shown any species we'd conquered. What's your assessment of humanity's threat level? Zexithara was quiet for a long moment. Threat level assumes they're the enemy, but after 3 months in human custody, treated better than most Confederation worlds treat their own citizens. I'm not sure who the real enemy is anymore. She stood to leave, then paused. Warn whoever needs warning. If you fight humans, you're not fighting an army or a fleet or even a species. You're fighting an idea. The idea that some things are worth dying for. And ideas, journalists, are much harder to kill than ships. The recording ended, but Zexithara remained, staring out at the stars that no longer seemed quite as cold or distant as they once had.